Well, hello everyone. Let's see. Hope you can hear me. Is this all right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to Noura and to Muslimish for inviting me and allowing me to share my perspective. So I'm Sarah Haider. I am co-founder of Ex-Muslims of North America, and my perspective is a little bit different. Noura asked me to speak about the future, so I'll share my views on that. And you'll notice that I'll contradict a little bit about what she said, so eloquently, by the way, and that was amazing. And I don't believe in any way that my views are the end of the conversation, but I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak about what I believe here today. And I don't really have much time about this, so I'll just share my views, throw them out there for discussion later, and I hope this conversation can continue. So a little bit about Ex-Muslims in North America. We are the first organization in North America exclusive to ex-Muslims and of our kind in the world. We are strictly non-theist. That is to say that we are ex-Muslims who no longer hold any religious beliefs. There are some ex-Muslims who are Christians or converted to another faith, but we are faithless people. We aim to reduce discrimination faced by those who leave Islam. We advocate for the acceptance of religious dissent in Muslim communities and all over the world. And we promote secular values. We counter the isolation facing non-theist ex-Muslims by fostering exclusive communities and support networks. And we strive to amplify the voices of ex-Muslims and their experiences, and to stand against those who stifle the criticism of Islam. Not too long ago, an organization like ours wouldn't have been possible. We're pretty young. As you've likely understood by many of the stories shared here today, apostates from Islam regularly face ostracism and abuse, especially from those closest to them. But today, ex-Muslims are coming out, apostates are speaking out, and we are growing. Ex-Muslims in North America is a relatively young organization, but even we have grown immensely. Today we have over 18 chapters in the United States and Canada, and these communities are our heart and soul. Let me talk a little bit about why communities are so important, why we focus so much on this. Social support is so immensely important to any effective activism. Once you know that you aren't alone, you have a community behind you, it's easier to face the hardships of speaking out. And we need more people to speak out. There are likely millions of ex-Muslims across the world, and we need champions. As we foster our communities, we are able to find and aid individuals who are ready to finally be open about their apostasy. This coming year, to just give you an example of one of our programs, we will be touring college campuses, and some of our community members will now be featured as speakers. They're ready to talk, and we're ready to give them that stage. And we're doing this, going to college campuses, because we have noticed how stale the conversation has become around Islam, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that as well. How it tends to be shouting matches from people on polar opposite sides, those on the far right who have no compassion at all for Muslims as people, and those who are religious conservatives who attempt to cover up some of the worst excesses of the faith. I think ex-Muslims have a really important part to play in this conversation. We have skin in the game. We have Muslim friends, families, communities who we care very much about. We want to protect their dignities and civil liberties, but we also want to be talking about the problems within the faith. And for too long, threats of violence have prevented us from speaking out. With this tour, we want to normalize the perspective of ex-Muslims. Sorry, a little thirsty. We've also been creating videos, and I'm really proud of this. I will show you one of these videos in just a minute. And these are profiles of non-believers to show the diversity of ex-Muslims, to show that there are many of us, that ex-Muslims are, we're your brothers, your sisters, your next door neighbor, we may be your former MSA president, or even your former imam. We are, we come in all shapes and sizes. We are men, we are women. We come from conservative backgrounds and liberal backgrounds, college students to octogenarians. We are many. I want to show you one of these videos. I hope someone can help me set it up. And it focuses on two sisters of Syrian origin, Hazar and Lena. Yeah, it's a little blurry too. looks like. But I'll wait for, you know what, I'll just continue the rest of my talk while we wait for this. But as you'll see, maybe we'll play it at the end, Lena ends it in the end, she says, you know, if you set your foot down and actually demand what you want, you're more likely to get it than if you didn't ask for it at all. And my perspective in this conversation is that the issues that we see in the Muslim world and among believers can only be resolved by direct confrontation, sometimes uncomfortable confrontation, and by truth. And I'm sure this is considered an extreme position by some, maybe some in this audience. This is Muslimish, after all. But I believe we need to be talking about facts. And maybe heartless as it may sound, I think we need to worry a little bit less about feelings. And here's why. Feelings deceive us. Facts allow us to see the world for what it is, and if we cannot see the world for what it is, then we cannot mold it into something better. I am not waiting for religious moderates to convince extremism that they are wrong about how they define a word or interpret a verse. I am unwilling to be held hostage to the ability of moderates to convince extremists that they are wrong about how they do it. I do not believe that there is a space for comforting lies. No, Moses didn't part the seas and Muhammad didn't fly to heaven on a winged horse. We don't know if there's a God, and we certainly shouldn't be living our lives according to what this God may or may not desire. And I think there's no place at all for this kind of conversation in the modern world, and we need to be clear on this point. I understand, though, that the religious have emotional ties to these ideas, but they're not the first to chafe at the prospect of abandoning old traditions. This is very common, and this is common to the efforts of progressives. In fact, we can expect resistance. But let me backtrack a little bit, tell you about who I am and how I came to hold these ideas. I'm an ex-Muslim. I left the faith when I was 15, and I left because I was confronted with ideas that were uncomfortable to me, with ideas that contradicted my faith directly. I actually even had like a militant atheist friend who would print out these verses from the Quran, and he would show me and he would say, look at this, Sarah. How do you explain this? And until he did that, as obnoxious as it seemed to me in that moment, I had never really thought about these things critically. I had never really examined my faith for what it was. And so I wanted to defend my faith. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, read up all about this, and I'm going to prove him wrong, because he is wrong about this. And then I found that actually, as I was trying to defend this faith, there wasn't really much to defend at all. And I left. And although I do see a lot of promise in the future of conversation, of collaboration and dialogue between ex-Muslims and Muslims, things like what the organization Muslimish is working towards, I think that it is immensely important to confront false ideas directly, and that we shouldn't shy away from this. When I was younger, this is one of my favorite quotes. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I don't know exactly who to attribute this to. I tried to look it up. That's what they said, but then I looked it up and said that there was a history behind it that was older than that. I don't know. Anyway, it's a beautiful quote. I love it. The arc of the moral universe is long, and it bends towards justice. And this is how I interpreted those words, that today may be dark, but tomorrow will be brighter, and the day after that will be brighter still. That this is the natural course of things. And these words helped me find solace in a chaotic world, and a world that maybe didn't seem to be moving in the right direction. I thought, well, in the long run, long run, we bend towards justice. This reassured me that morality and justice will prevail in the end. But there is a sense in which this phrase is misleading. There is a sense in which it provides false comfort. And today I want you to lose that sense of comfort. This phrase implies that progress is inevitable. It isn't. It is earned. There's no invisible hand guiding us towards justice. It is the struggles of millions, many of whom will never be recognized, and their sacrifices will never be known. And it is due to them that we will achieve progress. Humanity isn't destined for anything, and certainly not a future that is any brighter than the present. The world is what we make of it, And if there is a brighter future, a more just future, a future free of superstition and bigotries based on medieval dogmas, then that future will be made possible only by the efforts of champions of justice and freedom. If there is an arc of the universe, a moral arc of the universe, it bends because we will it to bend. And it is we who decide that it will bend at all, and whether it will bend towards justice or injustice, towards a more compassionate or inhumanist world, or towards dogmatic cruelty, towards truth or towards comforting lies and superstitions. In this vein, I'm a little bit disappointed with the conversation around Islam and its focus on moderate Muslims. There's a controversy around this word, what does it mean to be a moderate? There's a lot of people who have been talking about this, and we look to find these moderate Muslims, the ones who will condemn the most extreme edges of their faith, the ones who are moderate in the way that the Western world conceives of the word moderate. But we find that sometimes they're not there, or at least they're not there in the numbers that we wish them to be. And if by moderate we mean average, actually, then the average Muslim in the world more closely resembles an evangelical Western conservative. In my opinion, moderates can be part of the problem, because the center, the place that the moderates occupy, is not at all where it should be in the Muslim world. Moderates will not lead us out of this. Moderates will not be the shield against radical theocrats. It is those who deny the claims of religious theocrats altogether who will lead the struggle. But I sense a shyness among people, both ex-Muslims and non-Muslims, who don't really know how to approach this issue, don't think this is the best way to talk about this. They don't want to upset anyone, they don't want to hurt feelings, and sometimes they just don't want to be called bigot by other progressives. But I want you to know that there is nothing comfortable at all about progress. There is no guarantee that those who fight for it won't be smeared. In fact, if you look at history, you'll find that those who push for any cause were the first to be smeared. The future is in the hands of those who are considered radicals in one way or another, not moderates. It is those who say enough, those who are tired for waiting for the right time, whatever it may be, to speak up for change, the ones who will face what may seem to be insurmountable odds. And they do seem insurmountable. I mean, I understand that. I look at those Pew polls that speak about the social attitudes of the Muslim world. I see how many large percentages of Muslims all across the world think people like me should be killed. And this is discouraging. I see lists of worst places to be a Muslim, and inevitably, there are many Muslim majority countries that are in that list. But looking at the extent of the problem shouldn't discourage us. It should strengthen our resolve, if anything. It should be undeniable when we take a look at it that the state of affairs is intolerable, that in some cases we have no room for negotiation, no room for meeting in the middle, when the middle in itself is inexcusable. There's no room for compromise between those that believe that they have a right to beat their wives and those who do not. There is no happy middle there. But if you look at where things are, you might think that this position is unreasonable or even impossible. You may need hope, in fact. So let me give you a little bit. You can need to look no further than the numerous, truly numerous secularists and atheists all over the world who are standing up and risking everything to fight. These are people like Raif Badawi, Bangladeshi secularists who have decided that now is the time that they need to be talking about this. And if you want to find some courage, look no further than them. If they can stand up, given their odds, then we can stand up. So if I will lead you with just this, I know it's quite short, but we need to start talking about the truth. We need to start talking about facts, and we need to be uncompromising when we look at them. We shouldn't be ashamed of speaking about the reality of the situation. If we can start this, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll leave you with this. And I hope you enjoyed these videos. If you've seen them, there's we have a YouTube channel, Ex-Muslims of North America. You can look it up and you can see all these videos. I'm extremely proud of them. I think they show the diversity of ex-Muslims all across the United States and Canada. And I think we need more of this, more people speaking up with a compassionate view towards Muslims, but also uncompromising in their opposition towards the faith. So let Lena and Hazar speak.